What would be the sign that the Philistines would be delivered into the hands of Jonathan? This is the question that we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of 1 Samuel on walking through the Bible. Today we're going to be discussing 1 Samuel chapter 14, verses 1 to 10. But before we do that, let's read the passage. If you have a Bible with you, turn to 1 Samuel chapter 14, verse 1. But if you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So 1 Samuel chapter 14, beginning verse 1. Now it happened one day that Jonathan the son of Saul said to the young man who bore his armor, "Come, let us go over to the Philistines' garrison that is on the other side." But he did not tell his father. And Saul was sitting in the outskirts of Gibeah under a pomegranate tree, which is in Migron. The people who were with him were about 600 men. Ahijah, the son of Ahitub, Ichabod's brother, the son of Phinehas, the son of Eli, the Lord's priest in Shiloh, was wearing an ephod. But the people did not know that Jonathan had gone. Between the passes by which Jonathan sought to go over to the Philistines' garrison, there was a sharp rock on one side and a sharp rock on the other side. And the name of one was Bozez, and the name of the other Sina. The front of one faced northward opposite Michmash, and the other southward opposite Gibeah. Then Jonathan said to the young man who bore his armor, "Come, let us go over to the garrison of these uncircumcised. It may be that the Lord will work for us. For nothing restrains the Lord from saving by many or by few." So his armor-bearer said to him, "Do all that is in your heart. Go then, here I am with you, according to your heart." Then Jonathan said, "Very well, let us cross over to these men, and we will show ourselves to them. If they say thus to us, 'Wait until we come to you,' then we will stand still in our place and not go up to them. But if they say thus, 'Come up to us,' then we will go up, for the Lord has delivered them into our hand, and this will be a sign to us." In the last chapter, we saw Saul acting rashly and offering the sacrifice to God before his battle with the Philistines. Samuel told him that for this sin, his kingdom would not continue, and that God would seek out a man after his own heart to be king of Israel after him. Now, we don't get the reaction of Saul, either a good or a bad, so we don't know how he reacted. But what we do know is that Saul didn't back down from facing the Philistines. The Philistines had disarmed Israel by taking away the blacksmiths. Only Saul and his son Jonathan seemed to have weapons like sword or spears. The Philistines had also raided the towns near Michmash, where they were stationed, in order to further weaken Israel and punish them. Coming to chapter 14 now, we have Jonathan going to make the first counteroffensive against the large Philistine army. Jonathan didn't tell his father, not because his father would likely disapprove, but because for what Jonathan had in mind to work, it had to be done in secret so that the Philistines would be taken by surprise. Had his father found out, perhaps someone would have overheard, or perhaps his father would have wanted to send more men, and thus Jonathan's plan wouldn't have worked. Saul was situated under the pomegranate tree in the outskirts of Gibeah, which would be close to Geba, the place where they were at the end of the last chapter. About 600 men remained with Saul, the same contingent that were numbered in 1 Samuel 13, verse 15. With Saul also was Ahijah. Ahijah was the son of Ahitub, who was the son of Phinehas, who was the son of Eli, the high priest. From the end of chapter 4, where Eli and Phinehas died, to the time of chapter 14, about 46 years had passed. Ahitub, who we never met, would have become high priest, but he seems to have since died. As you recall, the Lord prophesied that the men of the house of Eli would die younger due to the sins of Eli's household. Ahijah is said to be wearing the ephod, meaning that he is the current high priest of Israel. Knowing that Ahijah is high priest is important for later on in the chapter. For now, Jonathan and his armor-bearer, though, left all the other men of the army behind and secretly pressed forward towards the Philistine garrison at Michmash. Now, not knowing any of the geography of this region really takes away from fully understanding the story. The topography between Geba and Michmash was quite hilly, to say the least. In fact, there was a large canyon that separated the two places at one point. That is what is described in verse 4 as sharp rocks on both sides. There were ways and passes to get across from one side to the other, but it would not just be as simply as walking on a flat plain. The geography, though, is what is going to make such a surprise attack possible, since the Philistines would not be able to see it coming from miles away. Still, though, a band of 2 men against the army of the Philistines didn't stand a chance. That is, unless God was on their side. As we're going to see throughout the rest of this book, Jonathan, unlike his father, is going to be a man of faith, a man that puts his trust in God. Jonathan knows that the Lord, if he was with them, could defeat 1,000 men by using 1 man. But how would Jonathan know if the Lord was with him? He would use a sign, one that if the Lord willed Jonathan to attack, would be borne out in the response of the Philistines. If Jonathan crossed over and showed himself to the men of the Philistines, and they said, "Wait until we come to you," then they would stand in place and not go, for the Lord wasn't going to be with them. However, if the Philistines said, "Come to us," then they would go up, for the Lord had delivered them into the hand of Jonathan. Now you might think that Jonathan is acting presumptuously, for he was the one who came up with the sign. And while that part is true, he left the choice to God. The natural thing for the Philistines to say when Jonathan revealed himself to them was that they would come to him. If, however, they waited for Jonathan to come to them, that would show that they were acting indifferently and carelessly, opening themselves up for attack. Thus, if the Lord hadn't willed the battle, nothing out of the ordinary would happen. However, if the Lord willed the battle, he would, as creator of heaven and earth, be able to influence the Philistines in such a way as to let Jonathan know that he could attack. So Jonathan was allowing God to make the choice. He wasn't forcing God to do anything. We'll continue with this story, the Lord willing, in the next lesson. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of 1 Samuel chapter 14, verses 11 to 23, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.